my income tax out here. No, we just have to declare that we were still doing it. That was what I looked up.
I don't mean to throw this on you, but
it would have been nice for a heads up, but I can.
Well, I just.
To the clerk. So that so that one there. So and leave mine. Like if we don't get to mine before 3, as
So
long
put
as
C down. C
I
down.
have to do mine, but as long as
This
it's
one.
done by before 7 tonight. So at some point, in camera.
Oh, yeah.
I have to have that one tonight. So if I don't have to do it before 3, though. I'm leaving at 7 because I have to be trained tomorrow. I'm presenting at Norfolk tomorrow.
Okay.
So as long as we can reconvene before 7 closed session, I can.
Yeah.
My thoughts are at 10 to 3, we go in and deal with that update. Get it. That's important.
And then
If we got a couple, well, you can do that at 10 to 3. And if we got a couple staff reports that have to be done at the beginning of next week, then we'll do them. Well, I'll move C down to the end here. We'll just keep plugging along. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good to see everybody back. I hope you had a good March break. This is our Board of Health meeting for March. It is March the 20th today. Again, just to remind you that we are web streamed and we're televised, and I will make sure that my cellular device will not interrupt things. I'm in good shape. If you put it in silence mode, that would be appreciated. Bill Jackson is with us this evening. I should say this afternoon as well as this evening. He is our camera volunteer, and we appreciate very much him being here to assist with the broadcast. Is there any disclosure of a pecuniary interest to declare? I see Member Black is not here at the moment. I'm sure he'll be along shortly. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest to declare? I note that none are declared. You have the agenda in front of you. Any changes or comments? I know that we have a council meeting at 3 o'clock. We're going to plug ahead as quickly as we can and try to get through everything on the report. Item 6C, I would like to move it down after F, as it's, if we don't get to it today and have to go back at this next week, that's one that Marlene Miranda has told me if we don't get today, it will not be as important as the others. So unless I hear any strong objections, I will move item 6C down to do at the end of the discussion items. On page 5 of your agenda package are the Board of Health minutes from last month, February the 6th. I have read through them. I have been moved by Board Member Wells and seconded by Member Geisens that the Board of Health agenda, this is for approval of today's agenda, that the Board of Health agenda for March the 20th, 2018 be approved as presented. All in favor of today's agenda? Thank you very much. Sorry about that. I should have did that. Okay. As I mentioned, the Board of Health minutes February the 6th are printed on page 5. Anything there you notice out of line? If not, I'll declare those adopted as they are printed before us. Let's move on to our medical consultant update. You've been promoted to a consultant, Dr. Locke. Wow. Anyhow, I know that you have another commitment right after you're finished, so I'll ask if you get started and we'll get rolling here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. From a local perspective, this table that you see there under local is now a little bit out of date. We've had an update on that. Currently, we have 3 institutions in outbreak for influenza B, 1 for influenza A, and 2 others that the organism is still pending on that. So that's our local situation. Overall flu activity, as I've stated here, in Canada remains at peak levels. We're still seeing activity, but in some areas that activity is slowly decreasing in many parts of the country. And this year, influenza B were greater than those of isolates that we saw for influenza A, which is another different from last year and previous years. And the main hospitalizations and deaths have been in the younger and older age group. This year, it's among adults aged 65 and over. And the graph there just gives you an idea of the activity across Canada. Internationally, we have a paucity of availability of yellow fever vaccine at the moment. We can't get yellow fever vaccine. It's being coming in Brent. I'm getting 5 doses every 3 months, so it's quite in short demand. But there's an outbreak of yellow fever in Brazil at the present time, with more than 550 cases have been reported there. And anyone going to Brazil, therefore, for business or whatever, they're having a difficult time in obtaining vaccine. The fourth thing that's on my sheet here is a paper that's been produced by Public Health Ontario concerning marijuana. Now, the board previously have mentioned that they would like as much information as they can get on the marijuana, as far as we know. This paper is not yet being finalised. It's still in draft form. So I've taken some extracts from it rather than give you the full paper, because it's out for peer review, and when it's finalised, I'll ensure that the board members get a copy of it completely. But as extracts from this paper, this was a review of the literature that's available on marijuana in both the United States, North America in general. And the key messages that are contained in this report are the odors that are concerning the production of marijuana. And there are a few things which are of note from a health perspective. And these are noted in the paper, that the perception of odor is not necessarily a reliable way to determine health risks associated with this production. And secondly, that of course this production can result in a lot of annoyance and complaints coming in from residents near the area. There were no studies on the health effects that they found, so we don't have any information related directly to any short or long-term health effects. However, they conclude that the odors are not present, the chemicals are not present at a level which will cause long-term health effects. Thirdly, that the key to a lot of the odors are appropriate ventilation and filtration systems associated with the manufacturing area, and that these are properly implemented and properly maintained. Of those, they mentioned high-efficiency particle air or HEPA filters, carbon filtration, negative ion generators or electrostatic precipitators. These are the type of things that are used in coal burning plants, which are placed in the chimneys to attract particles. Air scrubbers and masking agents, and the use of negative pressure. The areas where the substance is being produced be under negative pressure, which means to say that there's nothing coming out of the plant, any air entering is going in. The other recommendations that come from it to councils particularly is to develop systems to report and track these odours. Now these can help to inform local authorities on the occurrence of these odours, will allow for a process through which authorities can intervene to remedy any complaints or potential problems. And also that cannabis oil extraction, which can be another add-on production from the cannabis itself, is likely to increase the chances of odors because it will involve the application and use of solvents as well. So organic solvents could be added into the mix here. With regards to looking at bylaws or planning permission, these are some of the things that are recommended that Council take under consideration when you're looking at planning permission or zoning permission.
Thank you, Doctor. Any questions? Dr. Locke, Councillor Wells.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I don't have a question, but just have a comment. Most of the comments I've heard about marijuana relate to odors.
Yes.
And while they may not, as Dr. Locke said, affect one's health, they certainly affect one's quality of life if you live close to one of these plants.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Mr. Columbus?
Mr. Chairman, question. I thought I saw on television at the newscast the other night that with the packaging is going to be generic packaging and that it's a maximum of 10% THC. And there's a lot of marijuana growing out there that's 20 and 30% THC. So I just wonder how that's going to affect the production if it's limited to 10% THC.
Through the chair, I'm not aware of that. If you could point me to the article, I could probably investigate a little bit more. I don't have a definitive answer on that.
I think it was a CBC news announcement yesterday.
Anything further? I do have a resolution moved by Member Geisen, seconded by Member Wells, that the medical update be received as information. Any further discussion? Those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you. I go to consent items, which is number 5 on our agenda. There are 2 items, A and B. If any board member wishes to make discussion or have a question on either one of these 2 items, let me know and I'll move it forward to discussion items. Otherwise, I have one motion to deal with both of these consent items. Is there anyone you want to have moved into category 6, the next? No? Moved by Member Brunt, seconded by Councillor Wells, that consent items A and B be approved as recommended as follows. A item is that the staff report 1808 Healthy Babies, Healthy Children program one-time funding for mobile technology be received as information, and that the approved 2018 levy-supported operating budget be amended to include $16,600 for the one-time mobile technology initiative, with the funding to be provided for 2018 from the Ministry of Children and Youth Services. And consent item B, the recommendation is that staff report 1812 financial controls checklist be received as information. Any discussion on this recommendation? Hearing none, those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Now we'll go to our discussion items. If you go to page 29, please, we are on HSS 1805. This is the Haldeman Norfolk Health Unit Tick Surveillance Program changes. Marlene, I'll turn this portion over to you, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to ask Chris Lutzy, our Senior Public Health Inspector and Emergency Planner, to present the report.
Chris.
Just want to discuss the program changes to our surveillance program for the Environmental Health Team Tick Surveillance Program. We're requesting that the report be received as information and that the Board of Health endorse the program change from passive to active tick surveillance. Just to give you a brief background, currently health units are mandated to, in terms of Lyme disease, conduct surveillance for vector-borne diseases such as Lyme disease in vectors in humans, also raise public awareness of Lyme disease, and also handle case management of probable and confirmed cases. In particular, what we're talking about today is the tick surveillance component of that program. So historically, we've conducted passive surveillance, which is where the public can submit ticks to the health unit. It will get identified by the public health lab, and then if it's identified as a deer tick, it will go on to the National Microbiology Lab in Winnipeg. That process can take up to 3 months. For that reason, we are not here to help diagnose or treat. You cannot count on that process to be used for diagnosis or treatment. People should not wait for that process to conclude before seeking medical advice. So unfortunately, people have waited. There is some role confusion with the public that I'll just wait the 3 months before talking to a doctor. And being a critical, having serious health effects if you do have Lyme, it's important to get timely treatment. So it's best that they seek the doctor immediately if it's an engorged tick or if they're showing symptoms. So another important piece is that as of 2015, the ministry has changed the case definition for Lyme disease. It now includes people that have been to a risk area and have developed a rash. Prior to 2015, they needed laboratory confirmation. Blood tests would be the popular option doctors would use. Unfortunately, if you look in the report, it does indicate that the blood testing is not super accurate in the early stages of Lyme. But now with this new case definition change, with doing active surveillance to confirm these new risk areas, if a person shows a rash and has been to a risk area that we've conducted active surveillance on, they can be confirmed as a case. So again, we no longer have to rely solely on blood tests to determine if a person is a case or not. So last fall, we talked to Public Health Ontario about making some changes to our program, shifting away from passive surveillance and moving to active surveillance. We do have almost 10 years worth of data of passive surveillance to indicate where we want to do our active surveillance. Active surveillance in particular just involves public health unit staff dragging for ticks 3 hours or more in a good area that's identified as tick habitat in the spring and the fall. If we do find a deer tick there, it's identified as a risk area. That risk area is then put on a map that physicians will then use to help diagnose based on the new case definition. So it's important that we as a health unit contribute to that map so that we're not missing people that might slip through the cracks and not get the proper diagnosis. We want to confirm what we're seeing out there. We're going to use what the public submitted, drag around those areas. What we find, we can identify the risk areas. We can also go to other areas where we have lax submissions. Notably, you'll see Haldeman. We do not get a lot of deer tick submissions from Haldeman. That doesn't mean they're not there. Historically, we have seen deer ticks grow, the populations move and spread from Long Point to Turkey Point, closer to Dover, inland towards Langton. And we're also seeing Dunnville area start to be effective. We just recently been notified by Hamilton that they've identified a risk area that does touch on a section of the very northern tip of Haldeman County near Caledonia, probably about 3 concessions in size. So the sooner we map these areas, the more accurate picture we'll get of deer tick populations in our area. So also with active surveillance, it's much more reliable data. Passive surveillance with the public, historically somebody would come in, fill out a form indicating where they think they found the tick. As a member of the public, you're trying to recall, you could have been a tick could have attached to you 3 days ago. You're guessing where you might have got it. So that data is not as reliable as going out actively dragging, GISing the actual area you found it, and knowing that that is a risk area. In conclusion, I guess, again, we're going to be clarifying the roles a little bit better. Public has always been able to go to their healthcare provider to submit ticks. The doctor can submit ticks for identification and Lyme testing. That has always been the case. Now they're going to understand our role is very much surveillance and go to the doctor when you need treatment and diagnosis. There isn't going to be so much blur once we make the changes in between who does what. Again, this will also give us, once we identify the areas, we're going to be doing a lot more public notification, giving people a better idea of where the risk areas are, healthcare providers as well. That will be through various different communication channels, media releases, healthcare provider memos, social media as well. And again, we're going to get a more accurate picture of what we're seeing out there. And lastly, the changes outlined in this report are not anticipated to have any impact on either county levies. That is all. So I'll take time for any questions.
Thank you very much, Chris, for your report, going from passive to more active surveillance of this problem. Questions? Mr. Oliver, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks, Chris, for that report. I completely support what our health department is doing on this, and I thank you for taking this initiative. I did see in the report, it's on page 2 of your report, page 30 of our agenda, the last full paragraph where it talks about changing from passive to active is in line with Public Health Ontario's recommendation. So the question is, I gather we're not being mandated to do it, but because we are an identified tick area, it's a recommendation that our health unit undertake this new approach, correct?
Councillor Oliver, through the chair, yes, exactly. They have a guidance document indicating that when you reach certain numbers of receiving passive surveillance ticks, there's no real usefulness in continuing to accept ticks from an area that you know is of a risk.
You know is a problem.
And so, for example, continue to take ticks from Long Point, Turkey Point, that is not really any benefit to our surveillance program.
Right. And my second question, Mr. Chairman, if I could, another area that I happen to know from personal experience is a problem areas down in Niagara. Do we know if our neighboring health units that are also identified tick problem areas are taking this same approach as us, and will there be exchange of information back and forth with your neighbors?
Councillor Oliver, through the chair, exactly that. Hamilton notified us last week of their new risk area that they've identified. A lot of health units are turning to active surveillance just because it's more reliable data. It's giving a better indication of what's out there. It's also helping health units address areas that we haven't seen submissions in. So the more accurate picture we paint for our physicians when they return to that map to help diagnose their patients, better outcomes for the patients is the idea.
Thank you. Mr. Columbus, please.
Yes, Chris, is there anything that can be sprayed in an area if you know it's got a lot of ticks? You can go in there and spray a pesticide.
Councillor Columbus, through the chair, there is some. I haven't seen anything that's been at a community application level very useful. There are caroticides, basically that do, it's a pesticide for ticks. I wouldn't say that it's shown at a community level to be very impactful. There's also natural oils, essential oils that people have trialed out. At a residential level, it might be of some use, but when you're talking about entire woodlots and making sure that the pesticide gets down below leaf litter and everything else where the ticks live, the application might not be very cost effective. With backyards, there's ideas of putting down wood chips or gravel, 3-meter barrier around your property line, and then making sure like playground equipment, barbecues, patios, push that even in 10 more feet to the borders of your property line. Keeping out, you've got to keep out the critters that attract the ticks too, so the mice and all that. So wood piles, keep that away from the house. Keeping clutter off your grounds, making sure you rake up your leaves, that kind of stuff.
Anything else? It's been moved by Mr. Wells, seconded by Mr. Geisens. The staff report, Health Social Services 1805, Haldeman Norfolk Health Unit Tick Surveillance Program changes be received as information, and that the Board of Health for the Haldeman Norfolk Health Unit endorse the program change from passive to active tick surveillance. Any further discussion or questions? Those in favor of this recommendation is carried. Thank you. Item 6B, Report 18-06, Baby Friendly Initiative and Designation. It's an update from Pre-Assessment and Action Plan. I'm on page 43. Marlene, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to introduce Courtney Brooke-Laurie, one of our public health dietitians, who will present the report and answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and the board members for having me today. This report serves to provide an update to the staff report HSS 17-14, Baby Friendly Initiative and Designation, that was received as information by the Board of Health on June 27th, 2017, and to announce the successful completion of pre-assessment, the last step before applying for external assessment and the baby-friendly designation. Breastfeeding ranks as one of the most important contributors to infant health. We know children who are not breastfed and women who do not breastfeed are at increased risk for negative health outcomes. Health Canada, the Canadian Pediatric Society, Dietitians of Canada, and the Breastfeeding Committee for Canada recommend exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months of life. Results from our infant feeding survey 2014 demonstrate that only 20% of mothers surveyed were meeting this recommendation. The Baby Friendly Initiative is a global evidence-based strategy that promotes, protects, and supports the initiation and continuation of breastfeeding, and therefore why it is important for the Haldeman Norfolk Health Unit to continue with this work. As mentioned on page 21 of your package, breastfeeding promotion and supports align with the goal of the Healthy Growth and Development Standard within the Ontario Public Health Standards. Working through the Baby Friendly Initiative helps to create the supportive environment needed where breastfeeding is normalized and all families are informed and supported with their infant feeding decisions without the marketing pressures of formula companies. The experience of breastfeeding is significantly impacted by attitudes of the surrounding community. A great example to demonstrate this locally is a response we received on our Facebook page during World Breastfeeding Week. A mother breastfeeding is a nurturing maternal act, and unfortunately, it's too often shamed. It's natural and healthy, and I applaud anyone for encouraging women to nurse their children if possible, anytime, anywhere. Attitudes towards breastfeeding can affect a mother's willingness to breastfeed in public places, which in turn can affect the length of time a mother continues to breastfeed. As a health unit and a community, we have come a long way since the work on this initiative started in 2011. On November 1st, 2017, the Haldeman Norfolk Health Unit took another major step toward the baby-friendly designation. We hosted a member from the Breastfeeding Committee of Canada to complete an intensive abbreviated evaluation of our practices. This included an environmental scan, interviews with staff and clients, as well as observation of practices within the health unit and at the breastfeeding and well baby drop-in at the Early On Center in Simcoe. The health unit was commended for meeting most of the baby-friendly initiative requirements, including our written breastfeeding policies, the breastfeeding supports in the community, and staff knowledge for implementing best practice to support all mothers and families with infant feeding, regardless of their decisions. A work plan has been created in collaboration with various teams at the health unit based on feedback received from pre-assessment. This will ensure continued and a comprehensive approach to care. Feedback from the Breastfeeding Committee of Canada and our work plan is available for you to review in Appendices 1 and 2 respectively. With pre-assessment complete, the health unit continues to protect, promote, and support informed decision-making and breastfeeding as we prepare for external assessment. This will involve a more extensive site visit from members of the Breastfeeding Committee of Canada and is the final step towards designation. A baby-friendly designation will will mark a significant achievement for the health unit and the community, recognizing that we provide optimal conditions for maternal and child care. We would like to thank the Board of Health for your ongoing support as we complete the baby-friendly designation in 2018. And with that, I'm open to any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Courtney Brooke, are there any questions from members of the board? Mr. Oliver?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Courtney, thank you for that report. My only question, and you made reference to this, and that is that the BCC commended us for meeting most of the baby-friendly requirements. Of the ones perhaps that we did not meet, is there anything that you feel is going to be a particular impediment to getting this designation, or should we be able to comply fully?
Through the chair to Councillor Jim Oliver. So the purpose of pre-assessment is for us to get feedback to guide us on those next steps so that we can have all of our resources and things in place to be successful with designation in the fall. So to answer your question, no, I don't think there's anything that should impede us with our success.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further questions? It has been moved by Mr. Oliver and seconded by Mr. Oliver that staff report HSS 18-06, Baby-Friendly Initiative and Designation Update from Pre-Assessment and Action Plan be received as information. Mr. Oliver?
Mr. Chair, we all caught that. I didn't both move and second, did I? Because if I did, it was a mistake. I wouldn't have meant to do that.
Your name is on as the mover of this motion?
Yes, okay, thank you.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I know. I just thought I heard you say both moved and seconded, and I didn't mean to if I had done that.
I'm sorry. I thought I said Brunton seconded it.
Thank you.
No, you didn't move and second it. My apologies if I made an error. The mover is yourself and the seconder, Mr. Brunton. Any other discussion? If not, those in favor of this motion? That is carried. Thank you. I guess if you start moving and seconding, that's called efficiency. Okay, I'm going next to item D, which is on page 79 of your agenda. This is 18-10, the Needle Exchange Program Initiative Funding Increases, and there's a budget amendment. Ladies, so we're all set to hear what you have to say. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to reintroduce Tamara Robb and Leah Bolson, two of our public health inspectors who will take us through the report. Sorry, nurses. They're public health nurses. I stand corrected.
Okay, so this is Tamara and this is Sarah. Am I right?
Leah.
I did something right today. Okay. Ladies, we'll turn it over to you. Thanks, Marlene.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the board, for having Tamara and I here to speak on Report HSS 18-10, which is Needle Exchange Program Initiative Funding Increases. Our recommendation is to receive this report as information and that the Board of Health acknowledge that the Chair of the Haldeman Norfolk Board of Health and Norfolk County Clerk have signed the amending agreement number 6 to accept funding from the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care to support the enhanced provision of the Needle Exchange Program Initiative, and further that the approved 2018 levy-supported operating budget has been amended as outlined within this report. So in January of 2018, the Haldeman Norfolk Health Unit received one-time funding from the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care in the amount of $24,397. This funding is targeted specifically for purchasing needles, syringes, and sharps containers and associated sharps disposal costs. The funds may not be used for staffing or other program-related costs such as printing and promotion. Our program also received an increase of $12,000 to the base funding for the Needle Exchange Program, which is a 100% funded program by the ministry, which brings our total base funding to $52,400. So the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care Substance Use and Harm Reduction Guidelines states that the Board of Health shall provide or ensure the availability of sterile needles and syringes, as well as safer drug use supplies to individuals who use drugs in the public health unit's region, provide or ensure the availability of initiatives related to the disposal of used harm reduction supplies, provide education to clients on how to reduce harms associated with drug use, and provide referrals to addictions treatment, other harm reduction services, health and social services, including HIV, HCV, and STI testing, community support, and treatment. So the Haldeman Norfolk Health Unit has had a needle exchange program existing since 2009, which has been growing every year. In 2011, we distributed 2,650 needles. In 2017, our preliminary data indicates that we distributed 77,195 needles, which amounts to approximately 212 needles a day. Considering that we're not actually open 365 days a year, it's actually probably more in a day than 212. We do partner with pharmacies, opioid replacement therapy clinics to distribute our needle exchange supplies to community members. In 2016, the return rate, so the number of needles that were returned to the health unit, was 32%. This does not count the needles that are returned to pharmacies and opioid replacement therapy clinics. This return rate is in line with other municipalities. Our one-time funding in the amount of $24,397 must be spent and everything installed by March 31st.
So just a little bit of background as to why we've decided to use the funding to purchase the Sharps kiosks is that we have received calls from community members about needles being found within the community, specifically in Norfolk County or in Simcoe. There's been concerns about the courtyard out here in the library, some garbage bins in downtown Simcoe, some private properties, as well as some alleyways in the downtown core. And we've also had anecdotal evidence from Haldeman OPP with some concerns in Hagersville, Canfield, and Dunville. And we also have had our Public Works and Environmental Services departments in both counties, as well as the OPP, that have been reporting needles being found as well. So in February of this year, our 3 health unit office locations, so here in Simcoe and then in Caledonia and Dunville, had Sharps disposal kiosks installed outside, so they are accessible 24/7. And the plan with our one-time funding that Leah was speaking about is to purchase more of these to reduce the number of needles found improperly disposed of and increase access to Sharps disposal because they are outside, they are accessible 24/7. So with that funding, we've purchased 6 kiosks, 4 for Norfolk and 2 for Haldeman. The funding will also cover the installation of the kiosks. A lot of the locations that the kiosks are going to be located require a pouring of a cement pad so that the kiosk can be properly anchored to them. The funding also covers the health unit logo that goes on it and the bins for the Sharps disposal kiosks. So they're large Sharps bins that go right in the kiosks. And it also, there'll be arrangements for them to be properly disposed of as well through a company that we're purchasing the kiosks through. So in total, we'll have 9 kiosks, 5 for Norfolk, 4 for Haldeman. The kiosk locations, so there's on your screen there, this is Haldeman and Norfolk as a whole, but we will go into each community. So this just shows generally where the locations will be located. So we chose our locations based on where we have reports of needles being found within the communities and based on feedback from some of our community partners. And then we can look at the one specific to Norfolk County. So our additional kiosks, besides the one here at the Simcoe Health Unit office, the OPP office in Simcoe up by Norview Lodge, they have requested to have a Sharps disposal kiosk at outside their main entrance there, because they have had reports of needles being improperly disposed of in their washrooms and such. So we're going to be putting one there. And I think the next slide will show, so that's kind of an image. The kiosks are a yellow, it kind of looks like a yellow mailbox if you haven't seen one before. So that's just an indication of where, in correspondence to the front entrance, that kiosk will be located. And then the second one is going to be here. It's actually going to, we had identified 3 potential spots, and then in conversation with some employees for the county, we've decided to put it out back or front, depending on what way you come into the building, I guess, out by the library. So we'll show the next slide will show the images there. So the top left image is where we're decided we are going to put the kiosk, so just outside the library entrance. We will require pouring a cement pad there, but there's a lot of traffic in and out of the library and in the courtyard, and it's also visible from the Simcoe Town Center, so we felt like that would be a good location for that one. We
picked a location at the Delhi Administrative Building. There were two potential options we looked at there outside of DAB. So the one we decided on was the option 1, which is the left picture, and that's the one that's going to be located near the parking lot at DAB. Only reason we picked that one over the other one is the other one was outside of an office window, and we didn't want people to feel like somebody's watching them. And then our next one is in the municipal lot in downtown Simcoe. So we wanted to make sure, even though we all have one here at the library, we wanted to make sure we got one within the downtown core. So this one is actually located behind the old LCBO building. The parking lot's along the Lynn River there. You can go to the next picture and you'll see it better. So there's existing parking spaces there, so we'd put it to the side. If you're familiar with the Lynn River in that area, it's kind of across from where the alligator tug used to be. So again, it's a stone's throw from the downtown core, close to people who are accessing the rail trail system and stuff there as well. So we thought that would be a good location for that one. Then in Haldimand County, the Haldimand OPP also were really keen to have a kiosk at their location in Cayuga. So we'll have one in Cayuga, and that's where it would be outside of the OPP detachment there. And then the other one is around the back corner of Hauser's Pharmacy, so that will bring it up to 2 in Dunnville, one at the health unit in Dunnville, and then one at Hauser's Pharmacy. Hauser's Pharmacy is one of our partners with our needle syringe program, and so they were quite keen to have one. And the next picture will show kind of where we don't have that one. It's kind of in near the back parking lot of Hauser's Pharmacy, which is located near the downtown area of Dunnville. So that is where we've going to be putting the kiosk. So once again, that'll be 5 in Norfolk in total, 4 in Haldimand, including the 3 that are already set up at the health unit office locations. So now we're just waiting on finalized dates for the pouring of the cement, weather dependent, obviously, and the installation of the kiosks at all of those locations. The increase in the base funding that we are receiving, the additional $12,000 per year, that's going to assist in the continual maintenance of these kiosks and disposal costs for the kiosks moving forward. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Tamara or Sarah on this presentation? Mr. Columbus?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Will this be for all needles, including diabetic needles? Like I know some people take 4 needles a day for diabetes.
Well, and also, technically, yes, it could be used for that. Pharmacies do take back used sharps as well, so anybody can return used needles and syringes for like medical use and stuff as well to a pharmacy. It's just oftentimes for people who may be using them illicitly, they may not go to a pharmacy, which is why the kiosks tend to be better suited for them.
Thank you.
Thank you. For Height, please.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. Through you to staff, what was the reason for the cement pad?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the reason for the cement pad is that the kiosks are actually bolted and anchored into the cement. And based on recommendations from the company that makes the kiosk, they need to be anchored to a cement pad versus like pavement, just so that they don't get knocked over.
But you could install them on the side of the building, like the same way it's bolted on.
We actually inquired about that with the company because the OPP had inquired if they could be anchored to the building versus into the ground, and the company suggested it be bolted into the ground. The way they make the base of them, it's so that they can be anchored right in. If you tried to bolt it, they said it wasn't their recommendation.
Okay, yeah, I think Oxford County puts theirs on their side of their buildings, because I've heard some talk about that. Now, the Lynn River location, I believe that's isn't there a development going on? Right there, right shortly, that council approved. This is down by the plumbing store, is it not?
Are you, if I can just perhaps comment, are you talking about Riverside 83, the liquor building being renovated, the old liquor board building? Is that the, yeah, this would be across the road further to the east along the edge of the river, so it's not on that property?
No, and isn't that where we approved the development down by that plumbing store?
The apartment building?
Southwest of the plumbing, World of Plumbing? Isn't there that development down there?
If I may, there was an apartment building, I think a 5 or 6 story apartment building, just to the east of where the brewery is, yes, on Pond Street. So but that's further to the south.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and then I guess my next question would be, do you take stats on the usage of these locations to see which one's being used the most or not, and then move them accordingly?
Through the chair. So we, as Tamara had said, we actually just had the kiosks installed in February, so we don't have any statistics yet to show what our return rate is to those. However, the evidence does suggest that the presence of these types of kiosks reduces the amount of found needles in a community. We just don't have any data currently to show yet what our return rate would be.
Okay, but you will be collecting that data? Okay, thank you for that. And then my last question has to do with the safety of our garbage people, the staff members that collect the things. Like, what happens should they get hit, like bit by a sharp? Do we have procedures in place to look after that?
Are you referring to the garbage collectors in general, or the ones that empty the garbages in the downtown?
No, garbage in general, because they're the ones who could grab a bag, have needles in it, end up with it in their hands. Do we have procedures in place to, I don't know, deal with the outcome, I guess?
We have provided some training to the Parks and Roads individuals or staff members in both counties. I know they don't collect the municipal garbages, but we did provide some training to them, because if there is a used syringe found on county property, they are often the ones who are first called. So we made sure we did provide some training to them. As for the individuals who go house to house and pick up the garbage, that's something we can consider. I'm not sure if that's county or private.
Maybe
Who am I
Public
looking at?
Works
Lee,
would,
sorry.
maybe Public Works would know?
To the board, our current collection contract is done by a contractor. They have, and are required to by law, have appropriate procedures in place to deal with that, and they do deal with that. If they do receive a stick from a sharp, they do report it to us, and we do send messages to the property owner to let them know that it has occurred and that they need to do that. And if it continues to recur and they are disposing of sharps in their garbage, that we will no longer be collecting garbage from their property to ensure the safety of the contractor doing the work. In addition, parks and public works staff who may encounter just during the normal course of their business have received training in how to address it, and we carry sharps containers in most of the public works vehicles.
Okay, so our people are adequately trained and tested?
Yes, they are. With respect to the amount that they encounter, I can't speak to the contractor and the training that their training program. They are required to have that, and it has been successful in the past, and we have been advised when we have had incidences with that. My understanding, though, is that county staff will not be collecting from these containers.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies, thanks for your report. Of all the locations you've identified for us, the one that I find less desirable or almost unacceptable is the location right outside this building here, beside the entrance to the library. And I guess the reason why I'm a bit concerned about that one is the fact that that entrance, I assume, gets a lot more traffic for the library, including families and children, than would the location perhaps on the other side of the building, or the third option, which I believe you showed over on the corner of Colburn and Lott. So what was the rationale for putting this receptacle right outside the front door of our library, as compared to somewhere else where the people that are going to use it, they'll get to know where it is and they'll go and use it if they're going to use it, and the rest of us won't be, quote, exposed to that particular scenario of children having to ask their parents about it, et cetera, et cetera.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Oliver. We did take all of that into consideration, and we were working closely with Lee and had discussions with Heather King as well at the library. The library does get a lot of traffic in and out, which is why we did want to put it there. And there have been some concerns about used needles found not just outside of the library, but also within the library as well. So we figured that would probably be the best spot. Research does indicate that the closer the individuals are to the kiosk, the more likely that they are to use it, which is why we did pick that location.
Library staff had no concerns with it and they were supportive. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not sure how far within the library staff it got filtered down, but we did connect with Lee as well as Heather King.
Columbus?
Yes, you mentioned only 32% were returned without these boxes. So what is your marketing plan to expose the whole program?
Through the chair, like I said, we do have three currently at the health unit offices. So first route we would go would be talking to our needle exchange clients and working through word of mouth, because that is actually, generally speaking, how our needle exchange program has grown very successful, is word of mouth, especially with these kinds of harm reduction programming. But we did also advertise the kiosks. We did put out a media release regarding the kiosks at the health unit offices. We'll be doing the same for the community locations. It is available as well on our website and any other information that would go out to the public as general. We would also provide that information to our community partners who participate in the needle exchange program, so the pharmacies, the opioid replacement therapy clinics, so that, again, they can filter that information to their clients so they know the locations of all these kiosks.
So social media will be included? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further? Thank you, ladies. Well done. It's been moved by Mr. Brunton, seconded by Mr. Wells, that the staff report 1810 Needle Exchange Program Initiative funding increases be received as information that the Board of Health acknowledge that the chair of the Haldimand Norfolk Board of Health and the Norfolk County Clerk have signed the amending agreement number 6, accepting funding from the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care to support the enhanced provision of the Needle Exchange Program Initiative. And further, that the approved 2018 levy-supported operating budget be amended as outlined within this report to accept increased provincial funding with no impact upon the levy. Any discussion? If not, those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. I'm going to go into the closed session at this point, and certainly we may be able to do another report when we get out, I hope. I'm moved by Mr. Oliver, seconded by Mr. Geisens, that the Board of Health move into a closed session at 3:51. Now I'll make that 2:51, that'll be better. 2:51 p.m. to discuss matters pursuant to Section 239-2 of the Municipal Act 2001, SO 2001, C25, as the subject matter pertains to personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Any discussion on this motion? If not, those in favor? It's carried. We will be going into closed session as the Board of Health.
On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, folk of Norfolk, you won't be a stranger long. With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie Beach